Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Friday, Feel Good Friday, Freedom Friday. For some folks, it's just got paid Friday. Today is going to be live. We're having a live podcast, a live Q&A with Coach Robert Moore. I'm so happy that you guys have tuned in for this very important conversation. And we're going to try to do this more frequently. But what I promise is that if we got 500 likes for the video that we did with Coach Robert Moore, that we would do a live Q&A, because I know so many people had questions that they wanted to ask him directly. So we got him here today on this Freedom Friday, Feel Good Friday, to answer your questions directly. Oh, and just got paid Friday for some of y'all. I didn't get paid. Some of y'all got paid. But I hope you guys are having an amazing day. You made it through this week. I know for some folks it has not been an easy week, but you got through it. And here's what I know about you. I know that you've never not made it. And so I'm so happy that you are here to join this important conversation, because this is a conversation that is so necessary, because all of us are impacted and affected. Oh, hey there. Hey, Tracy. What's going on, Trey? What's going on, Larry W. Robinson? Happy Friday. Ladoska Frank. Hey, Ladoska Frank. Hey, Veronica from Pennsylvania. Katrina. Hey, Katrina. Happy Friday, everyone. So happy that you guys have joined in for this very important conversation. And here's the truth. There is a study that the National Cancer Center shared that was very startling to me. It said that 1 in 2 men in the U.S. can expect to have cancer in their lifetime, and 1 in 3 women. And when I heard those statistics, I was just startled and overwhelmed. But when we look at the reality for many of us and our families and for ourselves, we know that those statistics hold true. And so we want to have conversations to help us not be a part of that statistic. And if we are, how can we get through that process and live healthier lives? Hey, Althea. Hey, DM. Hey, Katrina. Hey, Mary. Happy Friday, Mary. Hey, DM. So we're going to have a conversation live. And so this is going to be kind of a backstage kind of situation. So this is for the podcast. So y'all going to have to act like y'all kind of backstage. So the way we're going to do it, I'm going to do an intro. So like y'all backstage, I'll just do the normal intro. Y'all just sit down and be quiet while I do the intro. And then we're going to bring Coach Robert Moore on for your questions. And so if you have questions, you can put them in the chat and we will try to answer as many questions as we can. Hey, Dr. Monica. Hey, Tim Houston. What's going on, Tim? How you doing? Happy Friday. Have you used the Nama 2 juicer? I've not used the Nama 2 juicer. I've not used that. No. Any other questions? Oh, let me see. So we're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. So this is the first time we're doing this. And so I'm trying to navigate. Y'all know I'm a little up in years. So this technology is a little challenging for me sometimes, but we're going to make it work. All right. Any other questions before we get started? All right. Y'all all right? Y'all good? All right, let's go. Welcome to the Good Living Now podcast. I'm your host, Harold LaFall, where we talk to real people about real change leading to real health. And on today's episode, we're bringing back a guest that we've had on before. He's plant-based health coach, Robert Moore. Now, if you guys seen that video, you saw and heard all of the knowledge he was dropping on us on cancer and how to live better and how to heal our bodies naturally. And so we brought him on to have a live Q&A so he can answer your questions directly. And so let's have him join us. Coach Robert Moore, where you at, man?
Right here. Peace, peace, peace. Thank you for having me on again, Harold. I appreciate the opportunity to share my message with your audience. And thank you everyone who's watched the previous video, liked, commented, and shared. That means so much to both of us.
Man, that last interview I had with you was so impactful. I tell you, even my brother called me and he was like, man, now I understand cancer better. And that's really what we want people to know, because I think a lot of times it's just like folks are just confused by what's happening. And so if you don't know what's going on, you don't know what to do. You don't know how to attack the issue if you don't know what's really going on. And so you really were able to break it down so that everybody could understand. So if y'all haven't seen that video, definitely go back and check that video out, because it really gave a lot of clarity and gave a lot of help to what folks can do if they are in the midst of dealing with that disease.
And I appreciate you saying that, because that just gives me additional confirmation that I'm living in my purpose, because that is my goal, is to make health simple enough that people can actually take action. Because the worst thing that you can do is do nothing. And that's what all the confusion and the overwhelm with the misinformation and just so much information overload can lead to. So that's phenomenal. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And the interview was so good, I forgot to ask you some questions that I'm gonna get a chance to ask you today. S-
Sounds
you know,
good.
so one of the things that I hear a lot, because part of my healing protocol has been juicing and taking a lot of fruits. And sometimes when people see me juicing a lot, they're concerned and they're like, "Aren't you afraid about the sugar content in the juice?" Because they've heard that sugar feeds cancer. And their concern is that when you're juicing and eating all this fruit, aren't you concerned about that? So, is that a real concern that people should have?
So there's two things that was stated in there that are both, one is correct and one is incorrect. And so sugar does feed cancer. However, not all sugar is created equal. So when you take processed sugar, you take away all the fiber, you take away all the nutrients. That type of sugar in its processed form, the white granular sugar, yes, that feeds cancer. The sugar that you see in all the processed form, high fructose corn syrup, with all the different names that it comes up. You can actually list the names of sugar, and there are hundreds. The molasses, once it's been processed and it does not have the structure of fiber and nutrients, that is the sugar that feeds cancer, because once it gets into your bloodstream or into your digestive system, it instantly turns into glucose, and it
Mm,
creates a spike in your index levels that now your pancreas has to release all of this insulin to try to get it to put to work. And if it doesn't, now that is just riding and flowing through your body. Here's where people get it misconception. So,
mhm,
fruit sugar is not the same as processed sugar for a couple of different reasons. First off, the sugar in fruit is actually called fructose.
mm,
That is highly different than glucose for one main reason. Fructose does not need insulin to cross the cellular barrier to be used for energy. Glucose needs insulin to be able to cross that cellular barrier to be used for energy. So, someone who's dealing with diabetes, that is dealing with cancer, eating the sugar from fruits, it's actually going to have a better effect on your body because it doesn't have to release insulin to be used. The second reason that it's different,
okay,
other
wait,
than
wait, 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 wait. Let me see. So wait, wait. So the sugar in fruit is called fructose, and
correct,
that fruit doesn't release insulin.
correct, that sugar does not need insulin to be able to cross the cellular barrier to be able to be used as energy.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Keep
And
going.
so that's why people that are dealing with insulin or dealing with diabetes and insulin resistance, they can eat fruit and still get the energy, but not have those spikes of insulin
Uh,
and things like that. The
gotcha.
second reason why the sugar in fruit is different is because the sugar in fruit is coming with some things that processed sugar is not. The sugar in fruit is coming with fiber and
Hmm.
nutrients. Now, if you're juicing, you're taking the fiber away, but guess what you're leaving? The nutrients, the
Hmm.
vitamins, the minerals, all of those things that are still in there with the fruit. So that's why the sugar in fruit and processed sugars are not created equal, and why the statement that eating sugar does feed cancer does not equate to the sugar in fruit.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. That makes a whole lot of sense. Um, Another thing that I forgot to ask you, and I think this is really important, because we talk a lot about what we eat in terms of the toxicity and some of the things that are in our foods. But what I didn't talk to you about and what we didn't discuss that I think is really important is stress and trauma, and how that impacts chronic illness. And I have to say this. Um, before I was diagnosed with cancer, I was eating the standard American diet, and that was one factor. But another thing that I think impacted my diagnosis is that I was under a lot of stress. I had filed bankruptcy. I was having all these financial issues. And for about 2 years, I was waking up stress, going to bed stress. And so then a couple of years later, when I got the diagnosis, um, it shouldn't have been any surprise because you have the combination of poor diet and stress. That is just like the recipe for any kind of illness, including cancer. And the thing about stress is that I think so oftentimes we normalize stress that we don't even realize we're stressed because we're so used to being kind of tense and worried, and we don't even recognize that. Talk to us a little bit about stress and how that affects chronic illness.
So you're absolutely correct. Stress and chronic stress is what most of us are living under. And you said it and you hit it right on the head. We've normalized it because we've seen our parents do it. Everybody around us is stressed. So it's like, oh, stress is just a normal part of life when it's not. So imagine driving a sports car because that's what our bodies are, is a sports car. Imagine driving a sports car and you just floored it the entire way. Every time you went somewhere, you just put your the pedal straight to the floor and you just gassed it all over the place. How much wear and tear would that take on the body on that car?
Mm, mhm, mhm.
So, when you're under stress, a hormone called cortisol is released. Also, your adrenaline is up. Both of these are two things that increase your heart rate and they have a huge effect on how you're able to think. So, once you're under high levels of stress, your amygdala stops working. Or, I'm sorry, your amygdala takes over and your prefrontal cortex stops making the decision. So now you're in what's called fight, flight, or freeze mode. People often think leave that freeze part off. So now all of your decisions are being made from this survivalistic standpoint. And
Right.
so again, your heart rate is up. All of these different things, and cortisol is deteriorating to the body when it's not properly released. And when you have
Mm.
excess amounts of it. And the reason why it also creates is when the body is not able to process all of the cortisol or get rid of it, it stores it as fat.
Mm. Mhm.
And so
Right.
this is also how you can end up with a lot of fat in around organs and places that you didn't realize it was going to be.
Mhm.
Our mental state has a huge role in what goes on in our bodies because you can actually think yourself sick.
Right. Look,
There, there,
look, how,
there,
look, let me tell you how I know that's true. I know that's true because I ended up in the hospital once thinking that I was having a heart attack or a stroke. They ran all kind of tests. They couldn't find anything wrong with me, but I was stressed out, worried about whatever I was worried about, and it landed me in the hospital. And I had the actual symptoms. I
Mhm.
had like heart palpitations, and I was talking to the doctor. He was like, "I'm not saying that you didn't have those things." He said, "But we don't have. There's nothing medically wrong with you."
Yep. And so the thoughts that we carry and when we're under all of that stress, we are not thinking the best thoughts. And so that internalizes into our bodies. And then you also brought up the term of trauma. Now, I want people to realize that when we say trauma, it does not have to be such a grandiose thing that it was life altering. Trauma
Mm,
is any you experience trauma anytime you experience discomfort. I need
mm,
people to realize that. So every time you hear no and you didn't want to hear no, that's a lesser trauma. Now it's not as big as losing a family member or some of the other bigger trauma, the things that happen in life that we associate with trauma, but those affect us also. And
mm,
oftentimes we don't allow ourselves to feel those emotions that came with that traumatic event, no matter what it was. And the more
mm,
we suppress and repress those emotions, the further down they go and the more that they are stored inside of our bodies. There's a book called The Body Keeps Score. Everybody should get that and read that because it talks about how our bodies internalizes the things that we don't process.
mm, mhm.
And that's why oftentimes when you're under stress or you're feeling guilty, you'll feel weight on your shoulders, your upper shoulders is where you'll
Right.
start to feel pain and discomfort. When you're feeling other different feelings, you'll feel your body ache in different places,
Mm,
depending. And so
mm.
I haven't memorized all of them, so I'm not going to say each one, but I know myself when I'm
Right.
stressed, I feel it in my upper back.
Right,
So
right,
that's when I
right, right.
that's how I know that's one place you carry that one.
And I carry mine in my neck, like I be walking around like a super old man because I'm like, okay, that's stress. It hits my neck. But so, what are some things that people can do to reduce stress?
Absolutely. Great question. So, the first thing that you can do is the first thing you did when you came into this life, and the last thing you'll do when you leave.
Mm,
Breathe.
hmm
You can use 4 to 10 deep diaphragmic breaths. Deep diaphragmic means breathing into your belly, where you feel your
hmm
belly expand and not just your chest. And
hmm
this will help re regulate your nervous system and take back control of your brain. So it will take the control back from the amygdala and put it back into your prefrontal cortex.
mm,
So now
mm,
you are the person actually in control into your consciousness, because when you're in your amygdala, you're really moving off of subconscious.
hmm
So now you're able to make better decisions. So if you find yourself in a stressful moment and you're about to react, take 5 deep breaths. And now you're no longer reacting, and you're able to choose a better route or a better option.
mm. That's so important because when we're stressed and tense, it's like we're holding everything in. It's like we're breathing, but just like barely.
Yeah,
Just kind of.
most people breathe with the top 10% of their lungs. And so there's
Mm,
this whole other capacity that gets unused. Also, when you're breathing, now you begin to bring yourself back into the now, because oftentimes if you're worrying, you're thinking about the future. If you're depressed, you're thinking about the past. So oftentimes we don't live in the present moment because we're so torn between what we did already and what we need to do in the future, and thinking about the outcomes that we don't want. And
right.
that's what leads to anxiety.
hmm
Anxiety is anticipating a future outcome that you don't want.
Right. hmm
And so breathing allows you to sit in the now and in the moment, and allows you the space to process whatever feeling you're having, because we're humans. So it's okay to be angry. It's just not okay to stay angry. It's okay
Right.
to be sad. It's not okay to stay sad. But these are human emotions that we have to allow ourselves to feel. But oftentimes as adults, we don't give ourselves that space because we got life to live. We got things to do.
Right.
Something else is pulling us in the next direction.
Right.
Another thing that a person can do to relieve, also, so before I leave that, so breath work. So I use breathing in the moment, but using
hmm
designated times to do breath work, even if it's just 5 to 10 minutes a day, where you're doing actual designed breathing exercises. There are tons. I would tell you to Google it or YouTube, and you'll find tons of videos for that.
hmm
Because there's the Wim Hof method, there's box breathing, there's breath of fire. There are so many different techniques. There's some that I use specifically when I'm under stress to help bring me back into the state of power and consciousness. So,
Right.
um, the next thing that you're going to want to do to relieve stress is move your body, because as I said, our body keeps score, so that energy, oftentimes those feelings and emotions are transferred into energy. And if you follow Chinese medicine or ancient Eastern medicine, we have meridian systems that our energy flows through. They call it
hmm
chi, and these areas can get blocked and stagnant, and now that energy isn't able to move. And but movement, and that's why Tai Chi is one of the things of movement that unlocks and breaks up those areas. So even if you get up and dance, but you dance like nobody's watching, like you're a kid that's just free, it
hmm
allows your body to move and release that. Yoga is another way to release that, because now you're with intention, you're moving your body in specific positions that release the tension in ligaments, joints, and things of that matter. So, movement is
mm
would be the second advice for getting rid of stress. And here's a taboo amongst people of melanated: go get you some therapy.
mm Yeah. That therapy part, that's so important. That is so important. I've been in therapy now again for about a year this time. Years ago, I went for my son because, he was being a teenager and he was acting up and somebody was going to get hurt. And I don't think it was going to be me. So I was like, let's get some therapy. But I did it. I was doing it to kind of better understand how to raise my son properly. And then recently, like in the last year, I've gone to therapy for myself because I realized that I had a lot of trauma, unhealed trauma, particularly childhood trauma stuff that I didn't realize how it was affecting me present day.
Right.
And it really has helped me just to be able to get some perspective and clarity, and some understanding because, you know, I know in our community we think you're just for crazy folks, but we all just a tad bit crazy.
No, and so I wouldn't say that it's necessarily just for crazy folks. We were
Mm.
taught, I mean, I don't know how you were raised, but I was raised in the 80s, and the saying always was, what happens in this house stays in this house.
Right.
And so it's taboo for us to talk about those things that happened to us, whether it was something good or something bad, because we don't talk about our business. That was one of those things that I know how I was raised. And so me
Yeah.
going through my healing journey, it's been challenged. That was one of the challenges that I had to get over, was being willing to share.
Right. 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 I think we just lost Coach. Okay, there you
Nope,
are.
I'm back.
No, you know what? That is so true, Coach Roberts, because I remember growing up, my dad was very abusive toward my mom. And I remember as a kid, um, I could hear my dad beating my mom, and I would cover my head with a pillow because I didn't want to hear it. I was afraid. Couldn't do anything. And the next morning, nobody was saying anything about it. My mom would have a black eye, and so we just act like nothing happened. And that those images and that experience I carried,
Yeah, I can
throughout my life.
imagine.
And it became the way I handled issues. Like when issues would come up in my life, you just ignore it and not pay attention to it. So yeah, that's something that is so important that we address when you know that you don't have the tools. Because like for me with my son, I just didn't have the tools to kind of get into his head. Like I said, somebody was
Right.
going to get hurt, and I'm like, let me get some tools, some new information, so that I could better be able to help my child, so we don't all be messed up. And I learned some things when I was in therapy with my son. One of the things that came out was I didn't grow up in a household where we express our feelings and told each other that we loved one another. So as a
Mm,
result,
yeah,
when I'm
you didn't
raising
do
my
that.
son, I didn't do that. And so in therapy, that was one of the things that came out. The therapist said that one of the things that my son told her is that my dad never tells me that he loves me. And
Mm,
man, that broke me because he was absolutely right. Because I thought he knew that I loved him because I took care of him and I did all these things, but he needed to hear the words. And so
he
that
needed
was
that verbal
traumatic.
affirmation. Yeah.
That was traumatic for him. And so that was leading him down a path of destruction because he was getting in trouble at school just because he didn't, that part of it, he didn't hear those words and he needed to hear them. And when I thought about it, I needed to hear them too. I needed to
Hmm.
hear them from my parents as well. We got a question right here. I'm sorry.
No,
I don't
that's all
want
right. And I saw it out, and I was going to get to that after you finish your point.
to. Okay.
So, the question was, she wanted to hear our thoughts on compassion and forgiveness to release those negative feelings and thoughts. So, in order to approach anything in life, you need compassion, because in order for you to deal with, first, you have to have compassion with yourself. And that's something that most people lack, because we're so used to beating ourselves up to get the result that we want, but it hasn't worked in all this time. So
Right.
self compassion is where it starts, because that compassion is going to give you the room to feel the emotion, to even be
Hmm.
able to heal it.
Right.
So, and then forgiveness of yourself, because oftentimes we hold ourselves under the pressure of, well, only if we wouldn't have put ourselves in that situation, or only if we'd have did this, or only if we'd have fought back, whatever it was, only if we'd have did more. Forgive
Hmm.
yourself and say, you're a human. I had a human experience, and I had a human, whatever it was, a weakness, a thought, a moment of whatever that was for you. So having
Hmm.
compassion and forgiveness is huge. And then having compassion and forgiveness for those that you feel have aggrieved you is going to be huge, not for them, but for you. Because until you have compassion and forgive them, you're going to be carrying that resentment. And that
Right.
resentment is going to be held in you, not in them. So
Right.
resenting somebody else is like taking poison, expecting them to die.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of times we hold a lot of resentment because we just don't know how to handle it and we just don't know how to express ourselves. And I think for me, therapy just gave me some tools to allow me to know how to navigate. Didn't mean that my life was going well all the time, but it just gave me tools to figure out how to navigate things in a healthy way. Is it true? The beginner's channel says, is it true that unhandled stress can lead to cancer?
So, in the sense that allowing these feelings and emotions to ruminate in your body and fester, yes, it can with create the environment where cancer can grow, because now you're dealing with a poor diet, you're dealing with all of these other things, and you have emotional stress inside your body as well. And
Hmm.
so it is not a direct, like, you don't heal this, you're going to get cancer, but it is
Right.
one of the pegs in the wheel that can lead to that situation and scenario. Absolutely.
Hmm. I hear sometimes from people say they had a friend who, ate healthy, but yet they still got a diagnosis. But cancer is so layered. It's not just
Absolutely.
what you eat. There are other
And
factors that contribute.
huge. And I'm glad that you said that, because there was a comment after I reposted the short that you created. A young lady got in there and was speaking of how her mother passed and her 5-year-old sister had passed of cancer, and that her mother ate healthy, but the area in which they lived was producing people who were passing of cancer. And so it's not just your diet, it's the environment. But that's one of the things that we talk about, reducing your toxic load. Now, oftentimes you cannot completely control where you live. But if you see that there's a factory down the road, there's agriculture, there's farming, those are some of the red flags, because unfortunately, those industries do not always take care of the surrounding neighborhoods and the surrounding environments. And the people who live there are subjected to the carcinogenic things that are left off into the environment, into the air. So yes, it's not a one layered thing. However, no matter what level of cancer you have, creating the right environment within your body and around you is what's going to be the saving grace for you. Like Harold can attest to, once he had his prognosis and he went through the Western medicine, he decided to make lifestyle changes. And that's why he hasn't had the regression that other people have seen, or the
Hmm.
reoccurrence that other people have seen.
Hmm. And another thing that I think a lot of people don't think about too is that, yeah, the toxins in the air and then even in the water, but also in the products that we put on our bodies. And our skin is our largest organ. And I don't think we talk enough about that. It was so interesting when I was going through my cancer experience. I started reading labels on everything. And I remember reading the label on some a deodorant that had a warning label. It actually had a warning label on the deodorant bottle that said that I think people who had kidney disease shouldn't, use this particular deodorant because of some of the toxins in it. But I'm like, okay, but if it can adversely affect them, it can adversely affect others. And it's so interesting that there's not enough conversation around the stuff that we put on our bodies that has all these chemicals in them.
I would say, let's take it a step further. Why is there not regulation in place that prevents these things from being in there to begin with?
Right, right, right,
Because it goes back to there being a systemic problem of, here in America, a lot of things are allowed in our food supply and in our consumer supply that are not allowed in other parts of the world.
right.
When
And
you
if you
look at
look
some
at the
of the,
rates, and
yeah,
if you
when you
look
look
at the
at,
cancer
yeah,
rates that they have, they're much lower than ours. And so that's just not a coincidence.
America has the highest rates for cancer, heart attacks and heart disease, diabetes, high cholesterol, you name it. If it's a metabolic issue, America has the highest rates for it throughout the world. And we're talking about even
Mm,
the places that they called third world countries,
right,
where they where,
right.
where they don't have the medical infrastructure that we have here.
Mm-hmm.
But that's
Mm-hmm.
because what most people wait for is they wait to be diagnosed with something before they take action. Whereas when you look at, and I was just watching a video about this, doctors, when you look up the word doctor, it is meant to repair something.
Mm,
Doctors repair you. So you can only go to a doctor after you've gotten sick. So Western medicine is designed to only fix you when you're sick. How about we start at the beginning and we go to
right,
prevention?
right.
And that starts with what you decide to consume, to bring it full circle to where the conversation started, what you consume, and when I say not just consume through your mouth, but what you consume on your body, how you wash your clothes, how you wash your dishes, the cleaning products that you use in your house, because although it may not be touching your skin, those fumes you still have to breathe in.
Mm-hmm.
Have you remember when we was growing up, you used to almost have to wear one of those little masks to clean the bathroom because of all the chemicals that you smelt through the cleaning supplies?
Right. Right.
That's an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a question for a young lady who said that she was dealing with breast cancer. And the first steps that you're going to want to do is, and I think Harriet was going to bring this up later, but I'll answer it now since you asked that question, is the first steps is to be compassionate and accept that you are where you are,
Mm-hmm.
and allow yourself to feel whatever emotion comes with that. That doesn't mean that you have to accept that it is the end, but you are accepting this is where you are. Because once you accept that, now you can start to make the necessary changes mentally and in your environment.
Right.
Second, change your environment. Remove all sources of chemicals in your house whatsoever, whether it's a cleaning product, whether it goes on your skin. Replace all of those with things that are made from plants, things that are biodegradable, that not biodegradable. Second, avoid as much plastic as you humanly can. Eat and drink out of glass as possible because unfortunately, plastic is another source of toxins. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to want to eat as much organic food as you can absolutely afford because this is also going to reduce your toxic load. Then you're going to want to drink distilled water or fresh spring water, avoiding all of the added chemicals. Eating as
Mm-hmm.
much fresh whole foods that come from plants as you can possibly stand. You mentioned that you have a juicer, so drinking fresh juice every day, because what you want to do is flood your body with fresh, rich nutrients, because that's going to give your body the building blocks that it needs to help repair itself.
Mm. We have another question from DM. I have pancreas insufficiency and was given an enzyme prescription called Creon, which is made of pork. I took for about a year, but stopped because I'm vegan and want the enzymes from fruits and vegetables.
That is a very specific question that I would have to do a little bit more research before answering, so I won't be able to answer that on this live.
Okay, awesome. But you know what is so interesting, Coach Robert? It, a lot of people, a lot of Americans, we go into stores and we think that because we have these regulatory agencies that they are protecting us. So we buy stuff not thinking that, it's harmful. And one of the things that I discovered and was just really surprised that, um, like in this country versus, let's say, Europe, they may have the same products. So they may have the same cereal, but the ingredients are totally different. They
Absolutely.
have the dyes and the other preservatives that our food has that makes them so toxic.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's because over in Europe they have a regulatory system that actually protects its citizens from the food manufacturers.
Hmm.
Whereas here, that isn't in place. So the food manufacturer is going to do whatever it possibly can to reduce costs and maximize profits. And unfortunately, that comes at the cost of the health of the individual
Mm.
eating and consuming those products.
Mm.
And
What?
so, yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was going to try to address that question there, but go ahead with your question because I know
Okay,
you had
no, no,
another
go
good
ahead.
one.
No, no, go
No,
ahead.
no. So, for anybody that has any kind of issue going on in their body, and I'm going to give this because some of the questions that you all are asking are very, very specific, and it would take a more in-depth conversation to be able to answer it. But anybody that's dealing with any kind of ailment in their body, they can do these four things. You can eat nutrient rich foods that come from plants because this is going to give your cells and your body the building blocks that it needs to do what it was designed to do, and that's repair itself. The second thing that you're going to do is move your body every single day. Most people think that they have an immune system. You don't have an immune system, you have an immune response. Your immune response is controlled by your lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system is the waste management system of your body. It's basically like the trash man of your body that comes around in your neighborhood and picks up all the trash. It grabs all the dead cells, the mutated cells, all the things that the body doesn't need, all the cellular waste, and removes it from your body. But the lymphatic system is only activated through movement. So living a sedentary lifestyle compounds things for you. So get up and move. If it's just walking, if it's just dancing, it doesn't have to be strenuous workout. That is helpful, but not necessary for you to activate your lymphatic system. So lymphatic massage is also, that's why you can get a massage. That's why they have that term. The third thing that you're going to do, as we just mentioned earlier, is have a healthy way of managing your stress. Breath work, yoga, journaling, therapy, whatever is going to help you with that. And then fourthly, reducing your toxic load. I mentioned a few things. I'll go over them again. Eliminating plastic, eating as much organic foods as you can afford, eliminating all of the chemical based hair care products, skin care products, and cleaning products, and going with something that is natural and plant based. That's what you can do to give your body the environment, because no matter what disease or ailment that you've been diagnosed with, that is your body showing you symptoms of being out of balance in some area, whether it be your kidneys, your liver, your heart, your lungs. All of it's just showing that you're out of balance. And you give yourself back in balance by creating the environment that your body needs to do it. And I'll bring it very simple for you to understand this. When you were younger and you got a cut, or now as you get a cut, do you have to think about it being able to heal to produce new skin cells for you to be able to go on with your life? No, you don't. As long as you do a couple of things, you keep it dry. You don't keep it, don't allow it to be met. That's why they say don't leave the band-aid on too long. You got to give it some
Mm-hmm.
air.
Mm-hmm.
You don't pick at the scab. So what you just did is you created the environment externally, which allowed that open wound on your body to heal. You didn't heal it. Your body did that on its own because that's what it's designed to do. And so when you're dealing with these internal cuts, these internal ailments, when you create the environment internally, your body is going to do what it was naturally designed to do, and that's
Mm-hmm.
repair itself. But you
Mm-hmm.
have to give it the environment to allow that to happen. And unfortunately, the way the American system is set up, it disrupts that at every turn.
Mm-hmm. Larry said, "Can the body repair itself?"
That's what the body was designed to do. Because
Mm-hmm.
think about it, every single day, the body is producing new cells.
Mm-hmm.
Every single day. There is not a day that goes by that your body does not produce new cells, because every day cells are dying. And that
Mm-hmm.
gets back into the explanation that I gave of cancer. Cancer, all of us are walking around with cells in our bodies that need to be gotten rid of because it's not working properly anymore. And I use the term a mutated cell. Now, what happens is we create an environment internally within our body where our bodies don't recognize this cell needs to be eliminated. And now it's allowed to either multiply, mutate further, and multiply more. And now that's how you end up with that mass. And then you
Mm-hmm.
create other environmental situations where it's able to progress into the stages of cancer. So to
Mm-hmm.
answer, so the short answer to your question is yes, the body heals itself. That's what it was designed to
Was
do,
designed for it.
period. Because when you think about it, and I just gave you the example, when you have an open wound on the outside of your body, do you heal that? Do you put medicine on it to heal, or does it do it by itself?
Mm-hmm. But we have to create the right environment for the body to heal.
We
So it's the
exactly.
nutrition, it's the stress, it's the environment. Those things help the body to heal. Making sure those things are intact. Do organs generate over time? That's what
Yes,
Levin.
and yeah, and so that no, she's just reiterating that organs regenerate over time.
Okay.
So I haven't memorized all of the time frames, but over there are different time periods where we have a whole new set of enough cells have been reproduced for that organ that basically you have a new organ.
Mm. Now, one of the things, Coach Robert, I hear sometimes when people are trying to transition to a healthier way of eating is they often say it's too expensive. It's so expensive. What do you say to people who say that?
I look them in the face and I smile like I just did, and I say that that is unfortunately that's a misconception that you have. But let me show you a couple of reasons why that's not the case.
Mhm,
Eating the processed foods, and this goes to the point to the question that the person that say that they're struggling
mhm,
with starting this lifestyle.
mhm,
Eating plant-based is only expensive if you continuously eat the vegan processed foods, or you eat out a lot, which means you're not cooking your foods at home. That's the
mhm,
only way this lifestyle can be expensive, because I can show you how to feed your entire family for $20 for less than $20 for one meal. You can go buy a pound of quinoa for about $5. That's going to feed you and your family more than one time, mind you.
Mm.
You can
Mhm.
go, and I'm gonna keep it real simple. Go to the frozen fruit section. I mean, go to the frozen section in the grocery store. Get you a 2 bags of frozen vegetables. That's going to be
Mhm.
another $3 at most. So now we're at $8, right? Now we're going to go get a bag of lentils. The bag of lentils is going to run you about $1.50 at most. So
Mhm.
now we're up to about $9.50. Let's just round it off to $10. Now you're gonna go over to the seasoning section, get you your favorite seasonings at about $1 to $2 a pop.
Mhm.
You're gonna go home and you're gonna prepare that meal. And now you just prepared your family a nutritious, filling meal for less than $20. And you're going to have leftovers because you got a whole bag of quinoa and you got a whole bag of lentils, and you're not going to cook all of that at one time.
Mm. So it's just looking at things differently, and because I think
It's
sometimes people, they look at, like, and particularly what you said about vegan processed foods and stuff you get at the restaurants that is not oftentimes really healthy foods. They look at that and they equate that to plant based lifestyle. But what you just said made it real simple and it's affordable.
Absolutely.
Um,
And the reason why people oftentimes thinking that it's expensive is because they think, okay, meat, I'm going to replace meat. So they go to the vegan processed version of replacing meat. And now you're looking at $9, $10. And it's like, yeah, I don't know if I can do
and,
that. How,
and most of that processed meat isn't healthy.
no, not
This
at all.
process is high in
It's
sodium and it has chemicals in
high
it
in
as well.
high it's high in fat, it's high in sodium, it's high in salt because they still have to make it taste good, just like any other processed foods.
Hmm.
Now, when you take fruits and vegetables pound for pound versus meat pound for pound, you come out a whole lot cheaper on the fruits and vegetable side.
Right, right.
Even when you start to looking at your grains, because you can get a pound of oatmeal, even organic oatmeal, for $5, $6.
Mm, mm,
You see what I'm saying? So it's not expensive. It's the thought pattern. And what you have to do is you have to get back in your kitchen.
right, right.
That's where you really start to save.
Hmm. There's been this some discussion around spinach, and people are now saying that spinach is harmful. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I haven't heard necessarily that spinach is harmful, but I will go and speak about hybrid fruits and all of the different misconceptions
Mm,
out there. A
mm,
hybrid fruit is just a fruit that has been crossbred with another one.
mm,
It's not
mm,
been GMO'd. So there's genetically modified foods or bioengineered foods where the
mm,
scientists have gone into the DNA and changed its structure. That's the fruit and foods that you want to avoid. If
mm,
it's hybridized, that means it went through a crossbreeding process, but nature was still a part of it.
gotcha.
Now, another part of that is with the any kind of prepackaged salads, you want to make sure that you properly clean it because unfortunately, agriculture and animal farms are very close together now. And oftentimes, our produce is being sprayed with water that's been contaminated by the animal farms. And that's why,
Mm,
because so, and just to bring it to point, there was an outbreak of E. coli a while back in lettuce. Well,
mm,
E. coli is a animal born disease. So why was
mm,
it on lettuce? The reason it was on lettuce is because that lettuce was sprayed with water that had been contaminated
mm.
with the fecal matter of that. And so when you even get to that, the only reason that any kind of fruit or vegetable is going to be unhealthy for you is because of that, or you're allergic to it.
Gotcha. Divine Insights asks the question: what herbs help your body get rid of tumors?
That is one of those very specific questions that's hard to answer on a live. There are several
Mm,
herbs that are good for cleansing the body. You have
mhm.
dandelion root, you have burdock root, you have milk thistle, just to name a few. But that would be a one-on-one consultation type of question because we'd have to figure out where is the tumor, what kind of tumor is it. So are we talking about fibroids? Are we talking about a tumor in the heart or a tumor? So it would get very specific, and that
Specific.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so some of those are kind of hard to answer on a live like this, and that's why I've been doing my best to give general answers that can be applied across the board.
Gotcha. And this is another specific one. So, Coach Roberts, tell people how they can get in contact with you because I think some people may have some very specific questions that is unique to them. How can they get in contact with you for more,
Great.
information?
So I made things super easy for everyone. My Instagram, my website, my TikTok, and my YouTube are all at Coach Robert Moore. My website is coachrobertmoore.com. You can click there. You can call me. You can hit me, not call me. You can hit me in the DMs. We can start the conversation to see whether we need to book a one-on-one consultation or whether the courses or programs that I have would be beneficial for you. So for those that are thinking about going into the plant-based lifestyle, I did create a Going Plant-Based Made Simple course. It walks you through how to make the transition so that you can actually start making those healthier choices for yourself.
Coach Robert Moore, man, thank you so much for joining us on this live Q&A. We're definitely going to have you come back. You're always dropping so much quality information that is really simple and helpful for people who are on their healing journey. And what I always want to remind people is that change is possible. Healing is possible. You can do this. I know sometimes it feels overwhelming and sometimes it feels difficult, and you might right now be in the midst of a crisis, but what the old folks used to say, this too shall pass. But sometimes there's some things that we have to do, some changes that we have to make. And so until next time, thank you all for joining us on this broadcast, and we'll see you next time on the Good Living Now podcast. But in the meantime, go ahead and you know what to do. Go get your juice on. We'll see you next time.